Looks like Rich put out another video. Been quiet for a little bit. There hasn't been a whole lot going on in the case. Darlie's latest status conference has been rescheduled until March of this year, and that's to be expected. That's what they've been doing for quite a long time. Us non-supporters are used to that. Back in 2015, 10 years ago, Darlie Key bragged about the fact that she had subpoenaed or filed a motion with the court to have some of the status hearings and DNA testing sealed from the public eye, and she was bragging about that a little bit on Facebook after we had already found it. So I'm going to listen here just for a little while, and I don't do this to pick at Rich. I do this to be an opposing view. I'm a little more assertive and aggressive than Rich is, but I have no ill will against Mr. Prater at all, or any of his people.
Hello everybody, I'm Rich Prater. I am your host today, and we're on episode 66, and we're on the Darlie Routier case. And Darlie Routier was convicted on killing her son Damon in early 1997. The actual crime had occurred on 6/6/96, and we personally believe
he minimizes a little bit. I mean, you know, you can hear him say she was convicted for killing her son Damon, when we both know, and all of us that study this case know, that in Greg Davis's opening statements, he made it perfectly clear that the case was about Devon's death as well. You can't have one without the other in this case. Whoever is guilty of killing Damon is also guilty of killing Devon regarding the evidence in the case. Some people like to claim that the reason they charged her with Damon's death was in case they lost, they could come back and recharge her with Devon's death, even though the sentencing is way different. But if she were to be found innocent of Damon's death, then she would have to be innocent of Devon's as well. But he minimizes here quite a bit. He just mentions Damon. Out of sight, out of mind. Minimization. They minimize when it looks bad for Darlie, and they maximize when it looks bad for us.
believe she's innocent of the crime. And we're going to be talking about that today, but we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing what I call a one-on-one, which with each of the people that join my panel. And the first victim here is going to be Tara. I've known Tara a long time. She's been with me since the beginning, and she knows the case very, very well. And she also has some very interesting credentials, which I think she's going to share with us today as to what they are and her views on the case. And
Tara's credentials are impressive. She has got some schooling under her belt in criminology and forensics. But the fact of the matter is, they, on the support side, try to discredit James Cron and his extensive credentials as a crime scene investigator, even a commander for the Dallas Sheriff's Department, with more than 40 years of experience, 20,000 scenes, 4,000 and some with bodies. They try to discredit him because he was retired. He was retired in that, and he went into his own business. But the thing with Tara is she does have an impressive resume. She makes more sense than most supporters do, but she does not work in the field of criminology or forensics. She got the education, but not the experience. James Cron had both.
Basically, what it's going to be is an interview. I'm going to be interviewing her, asking her questions, and she's going to answer the questions. Let's also not forget, um, she also has under Mystery Maverick under YouTube. She does. She just had a new release on the Darlie Routier case documentaries that she's doing. It's like a series. Excellent, excellent documentaries. Please check them out. It can be found under Mystery Maverick. And from what I understand, Terry, you're getting ready to do a part 4, right? You're getting ready to go for a part 4. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm just started recording the next part, so that.
If you listen back a few months, about 4 months ago, Rich was stating that Tara didn't have a lot going on as far as posting videos and creating content. And Tara said she's about to get back into that. She's working on some things now and it'll be out very soon. 4 months later.
That shouldn't take me too long. And this year I've decided I'm gonna try and put a bit more time into my channel, so there'll be a lot more coming up.
Yeah, I know everybody that has watched them, including myself, has been really impressed with it. We really like it.
I like the way that Mystery Maverick presents things as a true crime content creator. I like the way she speaks and the way she makes her videos. However, on this particular case, the content is where her and I disagree. She's very talented. She's very bright. But in this case, with Darlie Routier, you could have the brightest people in the world look at this case, and you can't find anything but guilt unless you believe that everyone is lying except for Darlie.
You've done a great job, and when you always send me the transcripts of it, I always send a copy of it to Darlie Lynn so she can see what you're doing with it. And I know she's really liked it as well. She's even told me that. So it's wonderful. My hat's off to that. Each one of the ladies on my panel kind of do their own thing with the case. Plus, they come to my channel to help with it. And this is just one example of that right here, which we're going to be doing each of the ladies one-on-one, one at a time, with the same thing we're going to do with Tara today. So let's go ahead and we're going to start asking Tara some questions. And first of all, Tara, if you could kindly tell the folks where you're from, what your credentials are, how you got started on the case, and why you continue to pursue it. And we'll start right there if you want to go ahead and get started with that.
So my name's Tara, and I'm from UK. Can you hear me, Rich?
I can hear you. Can you hear us, Tara?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Boy.
Sorry, Rich. I can hear you, but it's a little.
Would be jumpy. I don't know if
I can hear you better now.
Okay, maybe
now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Maybe the signal got a little bit weak or something. I don't know.
Possibly. It might be mine. So anyway, my name's Tara. I'm from London in the UK. And I first heard about the Darlie case. I was about 15 or 16 years old. And I was in Ireland, actually, at my nan's house. And I was up really late at night. It was like 5 in the morning, and Forensic Files came on, and I watched that. And I'd never thought anything else of it. I just thought, oh, she is so guilty, because in the forensic files, I saw like the luminol testing. And I was always into like true crime from like quite a young age. And then, so I just, that's how I initially heard about her case. And then I thought no more of it, to be fair, for quite a few years. And then when I after I had my daughter, I went to back to college and studied forensics. And around that time, and obviously I was quite interested by that time in forensic science. And I happened to get hold of a copy of the book Hush Little Babies by Don Davis.
We all know that Don Davis wrote the book Hush Little Babies. We also know that at the end of that book, he really wasn't convinced that Darlie was innocent or guilty. He sat at the trial day by day, and he made it perfectly clear and well known that he had an intense crush on Darlie, Don Davis.
And after reading that book, I thought, well, actually, maybe there's more to this case than actually meets the eye. It's not as straightforward as they were saying on forensic files. And then I went online and realised that, someone had posted all the transcripts and everything like that. And I just started digging into it. And then one day I managed to get hold of a copy as well, which I always believed was fate. I got hold of a copy of the book Justice Denied.
Media Tried, Justice Denied, written by Christopher Wayne Brown, who has a connection to the family of Darlie Routier through Dana Brown, which is actually now Dana Routier. They are family. She is married, or was married, to Darren's brother, Dion. So there is a connection there with this book, Media Tried, Justice Denied. Christopher Wayne Brown came on to the Lisa Gibbons show with Barbara Davis and attorney Bill Lane and spoke about his book. And in his book, you have numerous mistakes, including, you can read The Cult of Darlie, and that's an interview in retrospect with Darlie's appellate attorney, Stephen J. Cooper. And he speaks about that book. And he refers to Christopher Wayne Brown as a goofy fuck. And the book is full of photoshopped pictures, misspelled words, and innuendo and speculation. Take a look at the book Media Tried, Justice Denied. It's hard to find now because even though Darlie Key was on eBay years ago selling autographed pictures of this book for $25 a piece, that she autographed and would send them out to you for $25. They had pictures of her grandson's autopsies, and they had pictures of their bodies the way they were, and she signed that and sold it to the public. It seems as though so many thousand copies of this book burnt up in a warehouse, in a supply warehouse, and that's why it's so hard to find now at a reasonable price. Look into the book Christopher Wayne Brown, Media Tried, Justice Denied. It's a joke.
By Chris Brown, with all the photos of the crime scene evidence in it. And that's when I started to build a picture, because I had all the photos, and then I had all of the transcripts from the Darlie Facts website and everything like that. So that's when I really started to look into the Darlie case.
So you felt as though at the beginning, and I know I did too, that she was guilty because you watched the Forensic Files episode. And I heard you say something about you seen all the so-called luminol testing that...
So-called. There goes the maximization again. So-called. They put these little trigger words in there that I catch on very well. So-called. luminol testing. They don't believe any was done.
They did, and just different various things.
And that's one of Rich's catchphrases. He always says different, various things. Different and various mean the same thing.
These were that was the crux of what made you think that she was guilty, correct?
Right. Yeah, that was the main thing. Nothing. I didn't even think anything of the screen or anything. I don't think at the time. I think my main thing was the luminol, the way they showed, that she'd cleaned up.
Yeah.
Like she'd actually cleaned up, and they'd sprayed this luminol, and you could see where she cleaned everything up. So that sold me.
Right, and that forensic files. I remember seeing that many years ago before I had any involvement with this, and I didn't think much of it. I just thought it was another guilty person at the time, and me personally, I had a friend of mine back home in Ohio, because she knows I do this stuff. She knows why I do it, and she contacted me.
Says she knows I do this stuff. She knows why I do this, but you won't see any video, any documentation of Rich actually doing any other true crime podcast, reaching out to the public, speaking his mind. You won't see any documentation of that anywhere except for the Darlie Routier case. But he claims that this friend knows what he does and why he does it. Well, how come we don't know anything of your investigative skills beyond Darlie Routier?
And I heard from her in years, and she had contacted me and said, hey, well, I want you to look at a case. There was another case prior to that she wanted me to look at, and then she asked me to look at the Darlie case. And I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And her name is Sid. Well, it's not her real name, but we used to call her Sid. And I said, Sid, this woman's guilty of sin. I said, why would you want me to look at it? It's a waste of time. She said, I think you better look again. I want you to look a little deeper at some of this stuff. Okay, so I did, and I'm like, wait a minute. What about this? What about that? I've got a lot of questions now, and started digging more and more. And I started contacting people and talking to people, and I started digging more, and I'm like, there's no way she did this. There's no way.
What are you digging into? What people have you contacted? Because like if I say, well, I started digging and I saw this, and I started talking to people, I talked to this person and they relate to me this. You just give vague reasonings.
She could have pulled this off. And so what bit of evidence, was there any bit of evidence in general that, and I can pull any photographs up that you want or anything like that if you want to reference the one, Tara, but what evidence convinced you of her innocence? What was the biggest thing?
I think, so for me to start with was probably one, finding out that there was no luminol testing.
All right, she says she found out that there was no luminol testing. How do you find this out? This is just your opinion. This is just a thought that you have. This is something that you speculate on, but you clearly say you found out that there was no luminol testing. I wonder if she explains how she found it out.
I think that was massive for me because that's why I thought she was guilty in the first place. So
she said she thought she was guilty in the first place because of the luminol testing, and she found out that the luminol testing didn't even occur.
Looking everywhere, like I looked everywhere for those.
Yeah, still
photos,
can't find them.
Documents, just anything.
Well, the documents are available about the luminol testing, even the cameras they used. It's all written down and detailed. And, they did take luminol testing. I mean, it's documented. If they were going to fake it, why would they document it? I mean, just ask. If you did all that looking around, you never ask, because there are copies of that document in the Justice for Devin and Damon group on Facebook, and copies of that document in the Darlie War Room and Facebook groups where the luminol testing was done. They even tell what kind of cameras they used when they took pictures. The pictures, they're not available. Just like Darlie Routier's polygraph test exam results are not available.
Just anything about them, and I could not find anything.
Well, you weren't looking very hard, because we have.
So yeah, that was one thing that was like, hang on a minute, like they didn't do any luminol testing. What is that?
Yeah.
Well, because you couldn't find documentation of it, they didn't do any. That's how you found that out. See, in order for them to pretend or fake that they did luminol testing when they didn't, that means that every investigator from every agency, the crime scene analysts like Max Courtney, James Cron, the police that came in from, I believe, Richardson County to help, James Cron, Alan Brantley from the FBI, they would all have to overlook the fact, hey man, they said they did this testing. They didn't do that testing. But I'm going to explain a little bit further.
About.
Oh, I want to see the pictures for myself. I want to see the pictures. And,
Yeah.
I've always said,
I want to see the polygraph results for myself. I want to see them. The results for myself. I want to see them.
That made me want to like dig like more, because I was like, that's just that's really bad. If that's if that's not factual and they've done that, that's terrible.
She's trying to get us to believe that the police that wrote down these reports about the luminol testing done at the sink were telling us a lie. That they never even performed this test at all. What good would it do them to say they did when they did not? I'll explain further.
Because that was what made me think that she was guilty in the first place. So,
yeah, I mean,
it just made me question everything else. So then I was like, hang on a minute. So now I need to have a look at everything else and see if what they're saying is fact or not.
Yeah. I did the same thing you did. I wanted to see the pictures for myself, and there aren't any pictures. And you can bet
there aren't any documented pictures that I know of, but there is a report on the film that they used. There is a report that the luminol was taken by who? I believe it was Grant Jack had part to do with that.
That if there was pictures that did show Darlie did a cleanup or anything like that, you bet the farm that they would have published those pictures.
If there was any polygraph results that showed that Darlie unequivocally passed that polygraph exam, you bet the farm that we'd still be hearing about that today. Right?
And it would have been shown at trial. I want to see them. And they're nowhere to be found.
Not necessarily. Just because they have photos of things does not mean it would be shown at trial. The evidence did show, though, that they did luminol testing. I believe it was in discovery that the luminol testing was done, and neither the defense or the prosecution spoke about it.
Wow. That's why I seriously question as to whether or not they even did luminol testing. And if they did,
remember, to believe that Darlie Routier is innocent of this crime, you have to believe that everyone is lying except for Darlie. Everybody but Darlie's lying.
Did do it. They did it in the wrong place, in my opinion. I don't know why they would do it at the kitchen sink, to be honest.
I can tell you why they did it at the kitchen sink and became interested in the kitchen sink is because of Darlie Routier and Darren Routier's first initial written statements to police. They neither one of them mentioned Darlie going into the kitchen, into the sink area and bringing towels at all until they realized that the home was released back to them and they realized that the kitchen sink was gone, and suddenly Darlie remembered that she went back and forth to that sink 7 or 8 times. The police were interested in that omission. They're like, wonder why she would do that. Wonder why she would write this down one day, but then when we take the sink, she becomes nervous about it. In my opinion, the police began to look harder at that sink because they felt like that's where Darlie self-inflicted her own wounds. And she had splurting wounds from her neck wound. And it was on the counter. The counter had been wiped. The front of the sink and another part of the counter and inside the sink had been wiped. And they wanted to know more about it and how that happened. That's called investigating.
With you, because we know she was there.
I mean, I've seen the document.
Remember, he says, we know. I don't know why they were at the sink because we know she was there. No, Rich. She wasn't going to say anything about that sink until she seen it was gone. Neither was Darren.
That a apparent document. I don't know how legitimate it is. But I've seen a document that was apparently done by David Neighbours, who never testified at trial.
Right.
And
first of all, you said you looked and looked and looked and you can't find anything. What she's describing now is the document that we have that says that the forensic testing was done.
And by someone else from... Sorry, what was that other police department where they had the dogs from and stuff?
Richardson, I believe. Richards?
I thought they got those from Dallas.
No, it wasn't Dallas.
It was Richardson or Richards. Another city close. Police helped out.
It was some kind of sheriff's department, I think.
Well, it could have been Dallas County Sheriff's
I
Department.
can't think off the top of my head, but
I'm gonna write that one down, Tara, and see if I can not find it.
It was Richards or Richardson County. Something Richard. I remember it.
So basically, the document claims that they sprayed luminol on, and they saw a hand.
Remember, she first said that she didn't find anything about any luminol testing. She says they sprayed a handprint.
Print on the sofa.
Now, see, this is the thing, is they didn't spray the handprint. They sprayed the sofa. Then they saw the handprint because the luminol lit it up. And since it was on the edge of the couch, it drained away. Now, luminol has been well known for destroying evidence. Look it up yourself. Don't believe me.
A Darlie was a child's handprint, and the luminol, basically sprayed the handprint off of the sofa. Well, if that is a real report, it's nonsense, because luminol, the whole reason luminol's used at crime scenes is that it doesn't destroy evidence.
Oh. trusty AI will even tell you that luminol has been widely used in the field of crime scene investigations to detect latent blood. However, luminol has the tendency to destroy DNA evidence. And it's well been known that luminol can destroy evidence. It also gives false positives. So whenever there's luminol done in a crime scene, it's always compounded with, it's like a prerequisite. There's always other testing that has to be done to confirm the luminol testing.
You're not going to use a substance that destroys evidence at a crime scene, are you?
Well, people use luminol all the time, and it has a tendency to destroy things. Yes. Are you? Yes, you are going to use it.
That would just be.
So, first you said the test, you couldn't find anything on it. Then you found something. Then, well, they shouldn't have used it anyway, right? Your logic.
Pointless. So how does luminol, like, basically, apparently the luminol spray, when they sprayed the luminol, the handprint like got washed away by the luminol.
Remember, they didn't spray the handprint. They sprayed the couch. Then they saw the handprint. If they would have saw a handprint there with their eyeballs, they would have no reason to luminol. If they would have saw the bloody handprint there, they could have used something to lift that out. They sprayed the couch looking for appreciable blood where Darlie had been claimed to have been stabbed at across her neck. So they did not spray the handprint. Get that out of your head, because that's not what happened. They didn't say, look, there's a handprint, we better spray it. No. Logics, Tara.
Yeah, I think if they did, well, I think if they did do luminol testing, they should have done it.
I've never heard of that before in my life, and I wouldn't think that you know, it would be like wise to use like something that destroys evidence on.
Well, I think if they did.
First you said they didn't use it, and then they said that it wasn't wise. So they have to use it. It did help with a lot of things, but there are some things that it can destroy. Just like, let's say testing the screen fiber. The evidence gets smaller and smaller as you test it. It gets wear down as you test it, but you still need to test it.
If they did do the luminol testing, I think they should have done it more so in the utility room, the garage, even around the window where the cut screen was, and in the area of the kitchen where the island was. These were yes.
That utility.
I agree with Rich there. I don't know why they didn't do that. But I would agree. If I was going to use it at the sink and on the couches, I would use it in the window as well.
The room door, like, that frustrates the hell out of me. You know, I can't find anything. You know, there's no testing done on the blood. You know, like, I literally, apart from some fingerprint lifts, there's.
We have to remember that just because we, even as non-supporters, can't find an item that's allegedly in the evidence doesn't mean it isn't there. There are a lot of things that Ryan Kester, our genius sleuth, tried to go and get as far as evidence from the Darlie Routier case. They simply would not release.
Barely anything about them fingerprints, the blood, or anything on that utility room door.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the blood map real quick, Tara, since we're talking about that, so you know we can show people what in the world we're getting at here. All right, so, and I've showed this a million times on the podcast, but we're going to do it again in case we've got any new viewers. So all the orange dots is going to be Damon's blood. The green dots are Darlie's blood, and the yellow dots are Devin's blood. And this here is a format of the first floor of Darlie Routier's house at 5801 Eagle Drive in Rowlett, Texas. Now, these red X's are also blood, but blood that was never tested. Okay, I mean there's huge differences here. And
since we're tested, I mean, I can understand why they wouldn't test every single drop, but we do have documentation of where it was found and whose it was. Mostly Darlie's blood.
And this is what I was talking about around the island area. None of these were tested. I mean, especially this here is something that really captures my eye. Right here. And also,
they're just right out of the field of all of the blood.
Right.
And I don't think Darlie...
Well, whose blood is that? The intruders? I can't explain this either. They have their reasons.
Walked that way, and I wonder
she never said
the intruder may have.
Yeah, and then up here, this is the utility room, and then the garage is right to here, and then you go right from the garage to the cut screen. Now, they found a little bit of Darlie's blood here, but there's still a ton of other areas that were never tested. I think these are very imperative areas here. And why do I say that? Because it's the way the intruder would have entered. It's the way the intruder would have exited.
I live with Rich here, and I'd like to know more about that myself. It doesn't tell me that Darlie's innocent.
So I think all of these should have been tested, at minimum. Now, we go over here.
At minimum, all of them?
Where we have, and again, I'm not denying the fact that a lot of this blood is probably Darlie's. I'm not going to deny that. But how?
It might be why they might have known that that was Darlie's. Because if you would have done the whole blood map in Darlie's blood, you would have no blood map. You would have to cover up the other areas of blood.
How do we know for sure?
But I agree.
We have 2 deceased children here, and Darlie severely injured. I think, it needed to be looked into a little bit more. Now, in 1996, they took about 100 DNA samples, which at that time was almost record-setting for them, meaning the police department.
Not to mention that Darlie has had more DNA testing done than any other death row inmate on Texas death row in history. And it still comes back to her.
And that was pretty record-setting. There wasn't other cases that had that many amount of DNA tests taken. However, this house was a bloodbath and an absolute horrific sight, to say the least. And when you got 2 dead children, I think you need to do whatever it is you need to do to try to come up with the correct conclusion and not guess after walking through the house after 30 minutes. So that's my take on that.
Yes. Okay. Minutes. You like to discredit James Cron as much as they possibly can, but to this day they cannot name an intruder. What James Cron says, but he felt like this was an inside job. He didn't say Darlie did it, Darren did it, or anybody did it. He felt like it was an inside job. He felt like he had no intruder. If you really think about it, ladies and gentlemen on the support side, James Cron saying that he felt like it was an inside job could actually help you.
But Tara, anything you want to add on this? There's a lot here with the blood map. So I mean,
I just always point to the fact that, like you said, like there's all this other blood that could be.
It's not other blood. Could be. Just because we don't understand why they did the blood map this way does not make Darlie innocent. But I do agree that it should have gotten more, or they could explain why these X's are here. Maybe I'll go through the testimony and take a look at why those X's are there, or if anybody knows why those X's are like that, or has a reasoning for it, why they did the blood map this way, please comment below. But by no means does this show Darlie's guilt or innocence.
Important, but then like the most of the blood samples taken are from round the kitchen sink, and you know, the Hoover. It was just like insignificant things, you know, like that's what drives.
Why is that insignificant to you that they took all these areas around the sink, the blood testing, when Darlie never even mentioned being there in her first initial statement?
Me mad about it is that like they focused on things that meant nothing. It like that had no evidentiary value. They were just.
Why is Darlie's blood on the inside cabinet below the sink? Tell us how that is not relevant to you.
They were just items. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
Well, and possibly created through the chaos of running around. Do you see what I mean? They were literally just artifacts of like the event, and
they either do it not enough testing and investigating, or they do too much testing and investigating, according to the supporters.
They put so much like effort into them to try and make it out it was something it wasn't, and it just drove me crazy. It's like they spent a good few hours talking about a bloody Hoover, about a vacuum cleaner. They had like all experts talking about it and everything. Like the vacuum cleaner meant nothing.
You guys remember that? That is the supporter comment of the fucking year already. The vacuum cleaner meant nothing. We'll talk more about that later.
It literally meant nothing in terms of the crime. Darlie never said, I threw a vacuum cleaner, I fought with the intruder and we both fell over the vacuum, or she didn't. I just don't get it. What were they trying to prove? Like, what did she... Like, the police that went there, the first responders, the first 2 policemen that got there, literally didn't remember a vacuum cleaner there.
Say they didn't remember it, they said they didn't see it.
How could you miss that? It was right in front of their walkway. That's the way.
Well, it doesn't mean anything anyway, Tara. Like you just said, the vacuum cleaner means nothing, has nothing to do with the case. So why would it matter if they saw it or not?
Hey, they walked to that is the pathway they took to the back. Well, Waddle did anyway. He did.
Waddle. I always think of a duck when she says that.
Scribes going through there, but not one of them remembers a massive vacuum cleaner.
Vacuum cleaners aren't massive. They said they didn't see it.
Peed in your walkway, like right in front of you. You'd have to step over it, and you'd have to.
Well, how come Darlie didn't have to step over it to get back and forth to get the towel? It wasn't in Darlie's way, but it would be in their way, right? I see.
Quite wide over it. Do you see what I mean? To get over it.
No, let me see if I can
remember that.
Let me see if I can find some pictures of the vacuum. This here is right over here is the kitchen sink, front of the kitchen sink. You can see the
right in the middle though of your.
Right. Well, I've always said, Tara, it was the Raleigh police that moved this vacuum cleaner when they.
You said a lot of things though, Rich. You said Darlie told you she passed out on the porch.
tried to say that it was Darlie that moved the vacuum cleaner. I want to. I know I got more pictures of it
I
in
do
here.
think Darlie might have grabbed it to lean on it or something, to like hold
Well,
herself up on it or something.
I didn't mention holding herself up with the vacuum cleaner. Now, why would she grab? She's got a counter right there, a middle island counter, and then she's got a counter that wraps around. She's feeling woozy right there in the kitchen, but she grabs the vacuum cleaner to lean on instead of the counter. The vacuum cleaner was found in between two counters within 4 feet of each other. She could have leaned right on the counter, which is more logical because you get more support that way.
Something like that, but it doesn't mean anything. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, in terms of evidence, I mean, it doesn't.
Why doesn't it? But it doesn't mean anything as far as evidence. But it means a whole lot to you that they don't remember seeing it. And you can see that the vacuum cleaner was right in Darlie's path as well. She was the one going back and forth to the sink. Waddell said they went out to the garage. They may have not turned, and they may have just went straight through instead of making that left-hand turn and going into the kitchen area.
Doesn't mean anything. What was she doing? Was she trying to hoover up the blood?
I'm surprised they didn't make that accusation from everything else I saw. Yeah, this was the area under the vacuum. It's just the area under the vacuum. Okay, you can see this is where the vacuum was. You can see it was rolled through blood. Okay, right. You can see Darlie's footprints here. Okay, and you can see the horrible mess. And again, also
where's Darlie's footprints from standing there holding herself up as she was bleeding? Where's her footprints there? But you have them here.
Photographic evidence on the crime scene was not of best quality. Quite a few of the pictures, if not almost all of them, were taken with a disposable camera.
They were not taken with disposable cameras. They were not taken with disposable cameras.
And how do I know that? Well, because this question has come up to me, and well, let's put it this way. Some of these crime scene photos, you'll see a 6696 stamp at the bottom right-hand corner. That particular type of time stamp at that time in 96, mind you, I was in my 20s as well then, that was the time stamp from a disposable camera. And I think somebody also admitted using a disposable camera, and I want to say it might have been neighbors.
Still use these State's Exhibit stickers to this day. Just like that.
But I don't know that 100%, folks. I want to make that clear, but I think that's accurate. Now, here's another wheel mark here in the kitchen. We were talking about with that. Okay, there's another one. Okay, you can see some of Darlie's footprints to and from.
To and from. Sure, throw that in there. The only footprints that we have are footprints that are leading away from the sink. This one is leading away from the sink. You don't see any to the sink at all.
You can see her footprints there overlap.
Yes.
Because people say, oh, there's only footprints going towards the sink, not away from the sink.
There's only footprints going away from the sink, not towards it.
So
how did her blood get right next to the boys then? Well, how did her blood get next to Devon? And do you see what I mean? Like,
we would expect that there would be more, because Darren said she went back and forth here 6 or 7 times. You'd see more than one footprint, and you'd probably see one going that way.
Right, because
what walking back and forth. What did she do? Fly?
Yeah, that's what we wanted.
Over there, over to the other side.
No, it's a very valid point, Tara. Very valid point. So anyway, let me see here. Now, Tara, I know that something here real quick. And Tara, if you want me to refer to any of the other pictures, please don't hesitate to ask. Tara, I know in the past you've written Darlie, and I don't know if you regularly write her or not. I know she knows everything you do for her. I keep her informed on all that, and I know she's
No,
most grateful.
I don't really correspond with her. I did write to her once, but it just seemed quite difficult at the time. Because it was by post then, so I might try to do the online thing if that's sorted out now.
It's actually, and you know what? I'm gonna bring that up here real quick. And normally Bonnie reads this. Bonnie's not with us at the moment. She's doing she's cooking and doing some other stuff around the house. So if you want to write to Darlie, since it's fully digital now, this is how you could do it. This is all the information, and I'll leave it up here for a moment for people to see. She loves hearing from people, and she will respond to you. And I always thought it was most interesting, Tara, because one of the visits that I had with Darlie, out of numerous visits, I had asked her, I said, Darlie, how many of the non-supporters write to you? Or do you get hate mail? Do you get, And she said, never. I have never once gotten anything like that. I was really blown away by that. I find that to be very interesting.
That's because the mail, I know this from being ex-inmate, is the mail is read by officials, and if it's negative, if it's got anything gang related, anything about drugs, anything too sexy, anything, they will not give it to the inmate. They will not. They don't have a right to U.S. mail. It's a privilege. So if somebody was sending Darlie hate mail, she would never get it, because they don't. She doesn't need to be picked at every day because she's in there for that crime. My son's never got hate mail.
I was very surprised. Now, you can still send physical letters to Darlie, but it takes a little bit longer for them to get to her, but they'll still get to her, and this is how you do it here. And your letters will be scanned and sent digitally, and she will not receive your physical letter. Any letters you do write to Darlie, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, they are going to read that letter before they give it to her. So I want you to keep that in mind, which I don't really care with me. They can read whatever they want. I care less. I have nothing to hide. And but I wanted to get this information up since it got brought up. I was on a phone call with someone the other night who's actually really, really close to Darlie Lynn and her family. Great lady. She frequents my show as well. She said that's how she, figured out how to write to Darlie, was because of my show and me posting this on here. And Darlie once told me, she's like, Rich, all of a sudden on one of the visits, she said, I've been getting a lot of letters from a lot of people I don't know. And I said, Darlie, that kind of might be my fault, because, I've been posting it on how to get in touch. And she wasn't complaining about it. She just said she never really had that happen before. So, but anyway, that's all the information with that. And so what bit of evidence, Tara, would you say, without any question of a doubt, the humdinger of the whole case, what bit of evidence do you think makes Darlie innocent?
She's already answered this question at the beginning of the show. She said it was the luminol. Then she backtracked on everything about the luminol. Said she couldn't find anything anywhere. Then she did find something. Then they lied. Then they did it wrong. Then they did it in the wrong place.
Mazda is engineered to give you
The most.
effortless control.
What bit of evidence?
There's
I know
a
that's
couple of things, but I'd say I'd I'd say the
That's a tough one.
main. You mean I don't know whether you mean like physical evidence or like. Well, it's both the same, but I think like in terms of her injuries, I think
6 1/2
I
dozen
think it's,
water.
I think in terms of her injuries, you like that shows that she's innocent. Like to me, like
Okay.
I'm.
Did you not know about her injuries before you claimed that it was the luminol testing that made you believe she was innocent? Did you not know about her injuries first?
Sorry, but the angle of her neck wound, just it's not even just about how deep it was or how life threatening it was, or
It wasn't life-threatening at all. That particular wound by itself was not life-threatening. Could it have went further? Yes. In that case, it's life-threatening for me to be sitting here on this computer because I could have a heart attack and die right now. I could almost died making this video, according to your guys' thinking.
You know what I mean? Like, because people
Right.
are like obsessed with saying she had a scratch on her throat. So,
Yeah, and
for
these
me,
are
it's
going
not even about any of that. It's about the actual like practicality of it. Do you see what I mean? Like the actual physical practicality of being able to do that to yourself. It's
Yeah.
not about like whether it's not that deep. It's this. It's that.
Well, you also have to remember that if you listen to people who have killed, who are like serial killer interviews, which I listen to them because I want to know what makes these people tick. You have a sense of when, according to them, when you're actually committing the act, you have a sense of adrenaline that is flowing through you. You get excited. And that can help you do things that you wouldn't be able to do without that flow of adrenaline.
Being able to slash your own throat in a single slashing
It's
motion.
not a single slashing motion. There is a hesitation. They call it a skip wound. But that on her neck, where it skips over to her shoulder, right? It does skip. That is a hesitation wound, which is highly likely in a case of self-inflicted wounds. Look it over.
With no hesitation marks.
They're going to call that no hesitation marks, but it is. And it goes up, down, up, down, up, down. Hesitation marks all through it.
With your left hand.
This is a hesitation. Somebody stopped stabbing right here and started stabbing again right there. This is an actual stab wound. This is a slice.
And when your dominant hand is your right hand.
Doesn't matter. They can be done both ways. As a matter of fact, it would be easier to slice your own throat with your non-dominant hand.
It's just it's impossible. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it's impossible. Could you do it? Like maybe in the like. Do you know what I mean? Like if you like, even if you calculated that though, how do you get a one single continuous slash wound? You know how hard that would be to do, and the angle you'd have to like angle your arm at to get that angle on her neck. And once you
wouldn't have to twist yourself up like the Elephant Man or something. No. Try it. Test it yourself. Use the back of a knife.
Because once you get your once your arm goes a bit further back past your shoulder, do you see what I mean? You can't get any lower than that. You couldn't get that low down to the second part of the continuation.
Why not?
So, say she did do it to herself, yeah? She would just do it straight across. She would just do it straight across.
Yeah, she would. You would know this, right? Well, maybe she tried to do it just straight across. can guarantee you the guilty person wouldn't do that.
Cross, because it'd just be quick and simple for her to get the knife and slit her throat from one side to the other. It would be slightly angled down because obviously of how your arm lands. Does that?
We have to give them credit. They do try. You have to admire anyone that follows anything they have a passion for, but if you have to create your own analogy and your own facts, then, maybe you should take a look at what it is you're doing. You can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own facts. The supporters are a complete contradiction of each other. Justice for Devin and David Routier.